going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of the LA Report with your co-hosts, Eris Morrison and Linjo Kilo.
Yes, sir.
Man, we thank you guys for rocking with us for another episode 10. Today is for all of our sports lovers, our athletes. If you have any love for the game of basketball, you will enjoy this episode. We have a very special guest on the podcast today. I'm going to let Linjo go ahead and introduce our guest. Linjo?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Eris. It is with great pleasure that I had the opportunity to, introduce someone that's very close to me and very integral in my life by the name of Ricky Goings. Ricky is the founder and the CEO of EDAS, which stands for Everyone Deserves a Shot. So what they do is we help athletes with their college recruiting processes, and over the years we've helped over 45 athletes get into school for free. And then from there, Rick has also done stuff in the community in terms of helping high school kids get exposure with his 30 by 30 camp, and he's also done stuff for the older crowd as well by creating the Legend Coalition, the Next Five League, Team Society, to give guys a chance to relive their high school days and to bring the community, bring everyone together under one roof and enjoy good basketball. So without further ado, I want to give it up to my man, Ricky Goings.
Oh, man, I appreciate you guys having me. I'm so proud of you and what you're doing, and both of you guys. So appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, I also forgot to mention, Ricky was also in the Water documentary with Kevin Durant and Quinn Cook that came out in May. So if you guys have a chance to watch that on Showtime, definitely keep an eye out for him. He has a very, very important quote in there, but I'm gonna let y'all do that on your own. But yeah, man. So for this episode, we wanted to talk to you about like how you got started with helping kids in their processes with like finding schools and getting recruited. And then, from there we'll go on in a different topic as well.
Well, it started because I was, I had moved back into PG County, and I was trying to find a way for kids that weren't necessarily playing big time AAU or getting a lot of exposure to be able to get chances to be seen by colleges. Now, interesting enough, I kind of built my name in the transfer market, and Linjo was one of my first transfers. But I really got started in 2000, I want to say 11 or 10, with Austin Cooley, who's in Montgomery County, transferring him in from Niagara to UDC, work on that process. And then it was a matter of, connecting with college coaches and building the relationships necessary to build trust with them so that they would accept my opinion. Now, Everyone Deserves a Shot as a brand was started when I met Andre Fox. Andre was playing at my gym when I moved back to PG County. He was playing at Eleanor Roosevelt High School. He just won the state championship. And his coach had told him that he wasn't a Division I basketball player. I haven't watched him play. I just didn't agree with that. So I went to a game. They were playing against Montrose Christian, who at the time their backcourt was Alonzo Trier and McCall, who both NBA guys won a couple championships. And Andre had 45 points on them. And Georgetown coach was in the crowd. And I remember specifically when I understood that's kind of when I learned the politics was they played 5 quarters. And Andre outplayed Trier so much in that game that they played Trier during the 5th quarter while Andre sat, just so for that moment he could be the best player on the court. And I was talking to Georgetown coach at the time, so that's when I said, you know what, let me start helping kids. Maybe some more kids out there that can use this opportunity. The brand formed when the coach at Eleanor Roosevelt and some other ones had started kind of under the scenes, starting to trying to say that I was doing something that wasn't ethical, trying to lead kids in the wrong direction. So I found it was important to start a brand. And that's when I came up with the term "Everyone Deserves a Shot." Now, to fast forward, I never thought in a million years they would end up on a nationally broadcasted net, show on Showtime. But the goal was just literally, and Lynn Joe can attest, it's just to help kids. Then from Andre came Mike Cunningham, who ended up going to South Carolina State, Oklahoma State. Marquise Reed, he led the Rodney Pryor. And I remember the summer when I really came on was when Lenjo was transferring, Marquise was transferring at the same time. And the coaches that was calling and the connections I was making was just crazy. Then that following summer with Rodney Pryor, who was the number 5 transfer based off ESPN, and Corey Holden, who was the number 1 transfer. So that's when I was kind of solidified in the business. And the goal, we never got away from the goal, was to help kids get in school. So 5 or 6 kids became 45, 50 kids, and it just spilled over from there.
Yeah, man. It's really amazing to watch, like, the growth from when we first started. I think that was like a couple of years before we even had the documentary. A couple of years before then, and seeing that go from there to what it is now, man, is really mind blowing. And I really have to pinch myself sometimes to, believe what's going on. But based on your experiences, because you have a lot of experience when it comes to basketball recruiting. What are some of the do's and don'ts that you would recommend for parents and students or guys now that are trying to get recruited, especially during this time with like COVID-19 and basketball pretty much being on hold?
So the main thing I tell kids now, in 5 years after when we started, is don't get caught up in the hype. And so a lot of kids, because of social media, don't understand what recruiting is really about. And what I mean by that is they see the offers on Twitter, they see the coaches that are talking about certain players, and they get caught up in those conversations and don't understand. You just stay in the gym, you get better, and you listen to people that have been through the process. So a lot of these kids, they draw, like, don't make your own assumptions. It's the main thing to hurt kids. I tell this story now. These kids are grown. Corey Cooley, who he was working with, was at Coolidge High School, playing well. He was on his way to a Division I scholarship. Then he let somebody jump in his ear and tell him to go to private school. And he went to the private school. He didn't play much. Ended up going to Division II, all because he was hearing the hype of what a Division I player looks like. A private school kid that's done this, that's done that. No, work on your game and be what a team needs. Whether it's be able to shoot the ball, score the ball, defend, whatever it is, focus on being good at your craft. And then, at the same time, when you're in those opportunities, when you are in front of college coaches, and this is the most important thing to me, make sure you perform. Scholarship offers get taken and given based off of single or maybe 2 or 3 performances. You have to perform. And if people focus on the body of work on the court and not the hype around the court, it's just you can really build your reputation that way. We were in the gym 12 o'clock at night with full coaching staffs in there. Linjo was in there. And they were worried about what kids were doing on the court. Nobody had a name. Nobody had a jersey on. It was just guys bumping up and down the court. And scholarship offers were made based off of guys coming in there maybe once or twice and performing. And so I just tell kids is don't get caught up in the hype. Just work on your craft and most importantly, perform when the lights are on.
No, for sure, man. That's
Good
definitely
stuff.
fact. Yeah, definitely, man. You got any thoughts, Eris?
Nah, man. I mean, to be honest with you, Lenjo's definitely talked a lot about, his journey, and to kind of have his mentor on. I just think it's just great to have you on to kind of. We like to obviously promote, obviously Black folks that are out here doing positive things, and what you're doing with, you said it was called Everybody Deserves a Shot, so EDS, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that is majorly dope, and hopefully through this platform, what I'm saying, we can hopefully send and get more young people your way, that you'll be able to help and influence, because even just from getting them in school and in the basketball aside standpoint, you got people like Lenjo, who's a very dope young man, who I'm sure is just one of several of the same type of people. So much appreciation of what you're doing in the community, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
You know, I just try to push the culture forward.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure, man. And you know, like you said, the main thing is being able to focus on your craft and to perform. And you know, the first thing that came to my head is like, what would a kid say to that right now, especially during this pandemic where you may not have the opportunity to perform. Where like most guys that didn't get an offer at the end of high school may have a chance to go to an open gym or go to a AAU showcase and have that one or two games where they get an offer. But now that's almost done. So like, how do you see the landscape for recruiting changing because of COVID-19?
Well, I want to address this first because this I've had some kids reach out to me about this. So about a month ago, I think it's June 15th was the date. Kids were getting offered. Like one school offered 140 kids in the same day. Kids started picking up offers from Wake Forest, Maryland. They haven't touched the ball since March, and everybody is like, "Hold on, wait a minute. How are these kids getting offered and not being seen?" Well, you have to kind of pull the curtain back on what was going on. June 15th is the first day that kids can be contacted going into their junior year. So these are kids that some of these schools have been recruiting since the eighth or ninth grade. That now you can finally actually officially reach out and offer. So there wasn't like anything done. It wasn't no secret events that caused that. June 15th is always a big day for rising juniors because that's the first day they officially can be offered. Now sometimes you'll get those eighth grade, ninth grade offers, which to me are a little silly, but you'll get the hardcore offers for kids you may have been, you couldn't legally contact, but you have been you've been following, you can finally offer. Now, in terms of what recruiting is going to look like in terms of COVID, I'm gonna be very blunt with you. It's hard to tell because one, we don't know when basketball is going to start back. So what I mean by that is, we don't know what a season's going to look like high school wise. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who's in the gym, who's not in the gym. Like we don't really have a full sense of what that's going to look like. So what I would definitely think is going to happen is a lot's going to go into the transfer market, meaning that coaches are going to more so now than ever look to guys that's already played college basketball as the first bucket of talent that they're going to evaluate. The second thing is they're going to be digging into film. They're going to be looking at your full game tape. Highlight tapes get the coach's attention. The highlight tape tells the coach, do I want to even look at a full game? So now you're going to have to look at and think about the games where you played and you were very efficient. You showed a more array of your skill set, and the coach can kind of project. And you're going to have to be patient. They're going to look at the college guys first. That's just the way the game is trended. I'm fully expecting next year to be the year when they allow no sit-out transfers for the first time. It's a lot of pressure on the NCAA to do that, and guys are just going to have to be patient. And you know what? The talent's going to start spreading out, meaning that high-level Division II basketball is going to be equal to certain levels of Division I basketball, just because there's only a certain amount of scholarships. So it's going to be a more so a picture of guys adapting to the new landscape than more so it being on the coaches' end. Because the coaches are going to do what they got to do to find talent. If you don't think there's coaches in secret gyms right now watching workouts, you're lying to yourself. But you can still position yourself by making sure that when a coach calls or they're interested, you're ready with your best game tape, and you have what they're looking for.
Right, right, right. You made a very interesting point there when you said now a lot of schools are going to be hitting the transfer market, going to be digging into film and looking at the college guys first, right? So I kind of want to pivot into how does that apply to HBCUs, because in today's climate with everything going on socially, a lot of people are clamoring and begging for HBCUs, or not HBCUs, but for five-star athletes to sign with these HBCUs out of high school. But with your expertise, you're saying that the transfer market might be more advantageous. So how do you see HBCUs fitting in that mix?
Well, me and you have this HBU conversation all the time, and I want to start off by saying this. Like, I appreciate HBCUs. I appreciate what they've done for the game. I think that it is essential that our HBCUs survive because it is a huge part of our culture. But there's a couple things that have to be addressed for HBCUs to better be prepared. Part of it is before we even get to basketball is administration, right? So a lot of times you'll have experiences at HBCUs where they're not ready for. I'll give an example. So I had a kid that signed with Bowie State. He signed in November, which is a rare thing for a kid to sign early to a Division II school. By September, when it's time to enroll, they don't even have a copy of his national letter of intent, meaning that when he showed up for school, he had a full bill. I had to send in a copy of his national letter of intent for the financial aid office to apply to his scholarship, and that's just one example of a lot of stuff that goes on. We have to prepare administratively. Now, people will make this debate of, well, we had more money, we would do better. Well, are the people that's working in the office not college graduates? Are they not HBCU graduates? So now are we saying that the education taught at these schools are not equipped to deal with these issues? So my point in saying that is before we can even to me start that conversation, HBCUs have to fix the administrative side so that we're on T for when these athletes arrive. Now, on the recruiting side of things, in terms of what HBCUs I think have to do, a lot of them don't have recruiting budgets, and that's just that is systemic racism. A lot of the public HBCUs have been prevented from some of the money that their PWI counterparts have been given, even though they both have a status public status. Um, but what we have to do is be more diligent in our work. Are we in the gyms finding the Jamarco Pickett's and the guys like that before a white publication comes and says this kid has been anointed as a 5-star? Like, can we get out in front of that? Can we, um, as a stand out and say, you know what? If we had the funding that other schools have, we would make sure we're fighting for a system where kids are properly compensated. So we have to get the game plan right first, before we go out and say we need this level kid, that level kid. Now, pertaining to actually the recruiting landscape, coaches have to do a little more diligence on the research side of getting out and establishing relationships early. For me, for Hampton and North Carolina Central to get involved in a Maker or a Mikey Williams after they're 5 stars, how is that any different than what Duke and Wake Forest and those schools do? They wait to see where a kid falls in the hierarchy before they recruit. So now the HBCUs want to do the same. Why can't they go in and start the process? I'm gonna build a relationship with you because you're a good basketball player now, so you'll remember me when you're in your senior year. Not, well, I'm gonna say, you know what, you need to attend the HBCU, and we demand to be in the conversation. That's the attitude that we talk about in terms of privilege from their side that we're trying to have. Let's present the environment where kids want to come play, and it's no longer a Howard versus Duke just based off of black versus white. Whereas, you know what, I'm going to get a better experience at Howard for me than what Duke may offer.
Right, right, I'm glad that you brought up Howard, because Howard has as you know has become the face of this 5-star HBCU race with the signing of the 5-star kid Maker. And based on my own opinion, a lot of people that may not have like a trained eye to, what's going on with Howard University or even with the MEAC or with HBCUs in general. If you had a trained eye, you would realize that this is almost like fake news. But not fake news like, oh, he didn't commit, but fake news is as if this is not going to change the plight that we see within HBCU athletics. Like you just mentioned earlier, HBCUs, the number one thing is they have poor administrative staff across the board. And that trickles down to the treatment of their athletes and their students. You talk to, I don't know how many kids, even including myself, that have gone to HBCUs and graduated. We will all say we had a great experience socially. But when it comes to dealing with the staff and dealing with the admin, dealing with financial aid, we will tell you it's probably one of the worst things to go through in life. You feel what I'm saying? So I kind of want to bring that full circle and to say, how do you feel about him signing to Howard? And do you think that him signing will bring improvement to HBCUs as a whole?
Well, if I can be honest with you guys, and I try to stay with platforms that I can be honest, it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors with this. And now I'm gonna say this. So I know Kenny Blakeney personally. When he first got the job, literally, and this is true, he got the job at Howard on a Friday. He called me on a Saturday. Not even sure how he got my number. We started talking about a relationship. I had known him from doing some business with him outside of basketball before. Now, this is the truth. On October, I forgot what day, 2019, I was at Coolidge Homecoming. He grew up near Coolidge. That was actually his home school. He went to DeMatha. So we were having a conversation up there. A lot of his friends he grew up with went to Coolidge. So we're talking. He literally said, and this is matter of fact, I think I told you guys this in the chat, and I didn't believe myself. He said, Ricky, Maker told me that if he does not go pro this year, he will commit to Howard. Now I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wow, um, that'd be crazy. And he actually committed. I give Kenny credit for that. And I think that Kenny is doing a lot to try to build the brand at Howard to gear it towards sports. But I think, like, for example, outside of Kenny's control, is that Maker has obsessed the risk reward, the cost benefit analysis, meaning that I can commit to Howard, and I'll get a lot of praise for it. There'll be articles written about me. ESPN will pay attention to me. It'll be something I can talk about forever. However, I'm also very aware that it may not be a basketball season. So what happens if there's no season this year? Some people say it's just a commitment. Well, at that point, the commitment was just that. He got clout from it. Howard maybe get a temporary bit of clout, but then they got to go get the next 5-star. And this kid might not never play a game. The other question is, as a potential first round pick, do you start the season in January, go straight into playing in the MEAC? Because there's no guarantee he's going to come out in his first game, average 25 and 10. Do you want to have an 18-point game in the MEAC? So there's a lot of things there that if I'm as a guy just work with kids off the court and I understand the public relations aspect of basketball, there's some things there where this all was a show where he'll gain the attention, but he may not ever step on a basketball court for Howard. And you look at a Mikey Williams, who is entertaining some HBCUs, who very well knows that by 2023 we may be done with the one and done rule, and you can go straight to the league. So what I've said to a lot of guys, I said this on Twitter, and people don't comprehend what I'm saying is, if you have Howard and you have Duke, and the kid picks Duke over Howard, when he has to explain why he picked Duke over Howard, that's where the issue becomes, because then you've now set a precedent to where every kid to come behind you can now say, well, I chose Duke over Howard because of this, the same like this kid did. So to me, it's very important that that McCord not just suits up for Howard. He needs to play well. It needs to be a full season, and it needs to be shown that there's something to be gained for the kid on the HBCU side, not just the school.
Right. And that's actually one of my biggest arguments with it is like when I first heard the news, you know, I wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed because he chose Howard, not because Howard is a bad school, or at least academically he's not a bad school. Athletically, it makes no sense. Like if he would have committed to like an A&T or a Central or a Hampton or a FAMU, then I would understand. Okay, that makes basketball sense. You want to go to a basketball school. He's literally going to one of the worst athletic programs in all of D1 HBCUs. And then on top of that, it kind of brings back to my next point is that when it comes to this HBCU recruiting, a lot of kids already know where they want to go. So you almost have kids that are going to choose, hey, I'm gonna go to Hampton because I see Hampton on Instagram. I'm gonna go to A&T because I see G-Ho, the homecoming, on Instagram. Whereas schools like a Morgan State, Coppin State, Savannah State, Norfolk State, all these other D1 schools or all the other top schools when we left eat crumbs when it comes to getting these 5-star recruits. And that's,
Yeah, and
you know,
oh,
no, go ahead.
yeah, no, I think that's a crucial point, and the other thing is it's the experience. Like this is the part where not so McCord Maker and I'm sure has been treated as a first round draft pick and has lived a very good lifestyle. Um, Not only his relative, I don't know whether it's his brother or his cousin, Thon was one of them. But he's lived a pretty good lifestyle. He's not going to go to Howard, where he's going to get a couple meals a day, most likely unhealthy, bus rides for most of his games, terrible practice facility. Like he's going to have to endure something that he didn't have to endure, and that's going to be a test of character for a generation that have been able to pick and choose. We got to think back in the day when HBCUs were dominating the recruiting scene. We had nowhere else to go. So now McCord Maker is making a great sacrifice by saying, I'm gonna go away from charter flights and catered meals. Yeah, so now McCord has to endure a great sacrifice of some of the great experiences of being a 5-star athlete and able to say he attended an HBCU. I just hope the HBCU matches energy of saying, okay, now we have to improve the experience because we know that Howard University has made it clear that athletics is not what they want to be known for. However, now they have something on their hands that they have to deal with. So, I just hope that they can figure it out. And I think that you hit an important point that the young athlete has to understand. If you say in the ninth grade or 10th grade that Hampton is where you want to go or NCAT is where you want to go, in a way, you've kind of still done what, like you haven't really accomplished what to accomplish because you haven't given HBCUs a chance to recruit you. You went to Hampton and said, you know what, I'm going to play for you. So they don't know how to replicate that recruiting experience because in reality, they didn't really recruit you. If all Kenny Blakeney had to do was bring McCord to campus and he didn't have to technically out recruit Coach K, then how do you deliver that experience to recruit more 5-stars if you're not actually recruiting them? They're picking you. If that makes sense.
Right. And that, like you said, that's a crucial piece that a lot of people are missing when it comes to this support Black college athletics argument. And kind of like what you said earlier about the transfer market, I feel like Black colleges should focus more of their energy on that because that is where they're really going to be able to thrive and increase their level of play. Because at the end of the day, you know, getting big name guys into your school is one thing, but the last thing is you have to win and perform. That's how you really make money for your school. If you bring in a 5-star recruit and y'all don't even win the MEAC and y'all end up being 7-20, what good does that do? But if you can get 5 transfers to come in and y'all win the MEAC and y'all win the game in the tournament, now your school has a name and it rings. And you can get that kind of product across the board for HBCUs,
And there's
then
and
that can
there's a
work.
and there's a combination, right? Like Duke, yes, Duke needs players to be marketable and to win. But Duke has a brand McCord Maker by himself, and this is one part we had to kind of settle down as a people. McCord Maker by himself does not deliver Howard a TV deal. A one-time 5-star recruiting class does not deliver a Howard a 5-star. I mean a major TV deal because they're going to play 20 games that they might win by 30, 40, 50 points. If that's what the plan is. So like people want to see the ACC because games are competitive no matter what. And a lot of these small conferences, PWI or HBCU, somebody a one team or two teams run through it. So
Yeah.
like there's more than just guys showing up at HBCUs as 5-stars. Like we still as HBCUs have to prepare the platform and the grounding. Like we want the cake before we get the ingredients, right? And the oven's not ready. We gotta prepare to set the table, as young people say now, for when we get the stars. Because right now we're not. I'm going to be honest with my experience of working with HBCUs on the athletic side. We're not prepared for uh the 5 stars coming to those schools.
Definitely not prepared, man. So, with that said, I'm not sure you heard the news, but Howard University, they have, I think, like 4 or 5 sports moving to the NEC conference, which, if you don't know the NEC is a white conference, is a PWI dominated conference. So I wanted to get your opinion because a lot of schools have been leaving the MEAC, whether it's Bethune-Cookman, Hampton, A&T, Howard moving the majority of his sports out of the MEAC. So now one of the, I guess, what is there, two? Yeah. One of the two HBCU D1 conferences is now starting to become depleted. So how do you see that landscape changing, and how that lend itself to improving HBCU athletics as a whole if one of their
Um,
biggest conferences is dying?
well, I think the problem is that the current, and this is why I say HBCU should be on the front lines advocating for a new model, because the current model of football being the main revenue generating sport for college sports doesn't really fit the HBCU model as it pertains to the East Coast. So, like, Delaware State football will never be generate enough revenue to support Delaware State University sports, right? So to me, the only thing I see here in terms of how the 5 stars benefit the HBCUs and saves the conferences is excuse me, is by bringing in some type of media deal, some type of serious sponsorship. That's why I say it's kind of a swing and a miss. Now, in terms of why the conferences are aligning, it's because the schools just don't have the funds to sustain sports at the level they need to participate in that level. So Division 1 NCAA doesn't care that Howard or the Morgan can't generate the revenue they need. Either you meet these minimum standards of being Division 1, or you drop down to Division 2 or Division 3, or whatever the case may be. You've seen Winston-Salem State go Division 2, Division 1, come back to Division 2. Savannah State go Division 2, Division 1, come back to Division 2, because they just can't sustain the revenue model. Now, the guaranteed games, when you talk about the $500,000, $600,000 they may get from playing the high majors, the problem, as I learned dealing with Savannah State, is that the basketball program doesn't see that 450,000. That goes to the entire athletic budget, and whatever's left over, the basketball program may see, and however they divide that out. So I think that the only way for these conferences to really survive, if there's a better revenue model. Now you talk about the SWAC conference, and you say, well, why are they doing better? Because it's the South. The South football is king. I don't care if it's a middle school game. I've been to the South and seen JV football games on TV and on the newspaper. So I just think that that's just a different situation. The FAMU and Bethune-Cookman understands that. From the East Coast, where you have a flooded pro market in terms of basketball, where you have some of the best high school basketball in the country, AAU, they have to find a new revenue model. And I guess they feel the only place this revenue can come from is TV, and that means the 5 stars.
Right, right. Yeah, man. I mean, it's looking like it's gonna get to a point where at least on the MEAC, you're gonna have what 4 to 6 teams, and you're gonna have a bunch of 5 stars playing in like a round robin tournament to see who's the best team. That to me is almost trivial. You feel what I'm saying? Like I would like to see the MEAC reach down and try to lift up the CIAA. Because the elephant in the room is that if some of these premier black colleges end up being D2 or end up being in these weird conferences, that's going to decrease their chances of even getting a 5 star, because we're not going to be able to give them the black college athletic experience. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So like I really wonder what it would take for the MEAC to merge with the CIAA. 'Cause we all know the CIAA has a really big revenue stream in terms of like its tournament. So imagine having the CIAA being a D1 tournament, and then you have this narrative of 5 stars being there. that could create one of the bigger conference tournaments in the country if you have all the premier black schools with some good black players. Then it could create more money.
Well, well, you got to remember the biggest issue with HBCUs is another systemic issue. We don't have the donors. So like we don't have the donors to be able to supplement what the state and tuition doesn't cover. So the problem is with a MEAC CIAA merger, if the MEAC goes and becomes a D2 conference, which it was in the 70s, D2 restrict scholarship availability. On the D2 level, the most you can have is 10 full scholarships. And that's a stretch because based off how much funding you have. So now you won't be able to even afford the 5 stars, not just a matter of uh, amount of income, but just a matter of the limitations of being a D2 school. Then if everybody becomes the CIAA became a D1 conference, you have a bunch of schools that can't afford the I think it's like a $2 million cash in hand you gotta have, 13 full scholarships. Some of these schools don't even have housing. Like there's a lot that goes with that, and they don't have the facilities to be Division One. So I think the MEAC and CIAA are stuck in a weird space. Not to be the downer. I think the NCAA, knowing how they work, would rather see a Coppin, a Morgan State, a Norfolk State go to an NEC type conference, a Central, some of these schools that are doing well, and they would rather see a UMES, Dell State, Coppin State drop down Division 2. Now, again, the whole point of the HBU experience that they're trying to create for these players have systematically been eliminated. So, but to me, I'm telling you, the key to all of this is fixing our administration at the schools so that there's not a drop down in experience between Howard and Robert Morris. So that you know what I mean, so that like that experience is equated. Now we can move forward and build on it. But I don't want to feel like I go to Robert Morris and I know my transcript and my money's going to be good, and I go to Morgan State and I got a $5,000 bill I owe them 6 years later. That's what
Yeah.
if we can fix that infrastructure first, I think the rest of it will build.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think a lot of people don't take the time to understand those intricate details. They just want to throw a band-aid on a bullet wound and say, "Hey, you're good." Well, that's definitely not the case. And when it comes to black schools, you have to be extremely delicate because, like you mentioned, because of systemic issues, you have to take every little detail into account on how we can really thrive. You can't just throw water on the grass and things don't grow. You know what I'm saying? Um, but yeah, so that brings me to one of my last questions. You know, the same day that McCurr committed to Howard, I saw that Morgan State had signed like 3 or 4 high major transfers. So let's say that this school year, you know, happens and we have basketball, and let's say Morgan State and Howard play, and Morgan State ends up winning by 30 points. What do you think that will do for the HBCU landscape in terms of getting 5-star recruits, seeing one of their own 5 stars get whooped by a bunch of no names per se? How do you think that'll work?
I think that that's the line that's like going to have to be walked. I mean, I think it's a terrible look if Thon Maker goes against Morgan and loses by 25 and he scores 30. I think it's a bad look. But one thing I will say is that it's comparable to who's the kid that was at Georgia this year that's projected no more pick at one point. He was
Anthony
getting his
Edwards?
ass. He was getting whooped all year. And
Yeah.
I don't know how much of a bearing it had on the draft stud. Maybe it did. I don't know. I haven't followed, but that would be similar. I think that the greater takeaway over from that conversation more so is how does Kenny Blakeney, who has a McCord maker, uses that to go grab some of the transfers. And you gotta remember, I mean, Kevin Brodus is one of the best recruiters in the country. Like that's Morgan's situation to me is a little bit of an anomaly because you have one of the top 10 recruiters in the country who took an HBCU job. So he has the skill set and the experience to get kids that a normal HBCU wouldn't. And I appreciate and I respect and I really truly like value Morgan State making that hire with Brodus. You know, that's my friend. He had some baggage with him, but they looked past that and saw what he could do for the school and for HBCUs overall. I mean, I expect Morgan to be in the NCAA tournament, if not next year, definitely the year after, and continually after that, because he's a unique coach in the situation. But what we got to see is some of these other HBCU coaches go out on the limb and say, you know what, we got to try these things too. Because one thing you know, Lenzo, is that as a grad senior, it's all about opportunity. So can they find some of that talent? I mean, let's be honest, right? Like I know one of those guys that broke his side. Those other guys, I didn't even know they was in the market. That means that he understands how to navigate the portal and find talent. That's what the Juan Dixons, the Kenny Blakeney's, and guys like that in the MEAC got to do, and able to even out the talent. Now, once it's evened out, and you're not in, and you don't got to worry about McCord Maker getting blown up by 30 points or winning by 30 points. That he's facing pro level competition. Now the five stars. Now, okay, you know what? Hampton Howard is a serious conversation. It's not just a pipe dream or me trying to, make a headline and get likes. I'm playing in a competitive conference. But again, it starts from the bottom and the work Brodus put in, the grind he put in to find those transfers. Like I say, my favorite MEAC story that to me is the epitome of the MEAC is seeing the prior Morgan State coaching staff in the gym watching Jamarco Pickett and pretty much walking out of the gym as if he's a regular. Less than a year later, he's one of the top 100 players in the country at Hargrave. Now they have the excuse he wouldn't have came here. No, he would have never went to Hargrave if you had offered him. But again, you're waiting on validation from a white man to you recruit your own people, and to me, that's a slave mindset that if we're going to win in college basketball, we got to get rid of.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that point, I feel like a lot of HBCU coaching staffs fall victim to that slave mentality, in a sense, like they're not going to look at a kid until the white man puts a stamp on them of approval, quote, per se. Like let's look at the area here in this DMV basketball in the water area, right? We have 6 HBCUs. We have Howard, Coppin, Morgan, UMES, UDC, Bowie State. We got 6 HBCUs. I can count on my hand right now how many of them reached out to me when I came out of high school. 0. Rick knows plenty of kids that would have been steals for these schools, but they never even gave them a chance. And it's like, it kind of goes twofold. Like, for example, when it comes to the Black community, we have to address the systemic history that we've been going through, but also take personal accountability and make sure that we become the change that we want to see. That's the same thing with these HBCUs. You can't just expect 5 stars to fall on your doorstep if you won't put the work in to go recruit some kids that may be steals. But
No,
you
I'm
won't,
not.
you know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, I'm gonna address a topic that I have with coaches behind closed doors, and I've never addressed this publicly, but I'm gonna do it, and we're just gonna have to see where it goes. The problem that happens with us, and this ties into HBCUs, it ties to us as Black coaches, is that look who we elevate. All right, so the people that's taking these coaching jobs, the people that we put as these high paid coaches at high majors are bought and sold and have so much debt to somebody else for their jobs. They can't actively do their jobs and it trickles down. So some of these assistant coaches at the HBCU level are so indebted to AAU programs for kids they'll never get. If an AAU guy or somebody gets you a job, you're indebted to him by nature. Now, you are now kind of turned over the autonomy of your ability to somebody else who still may not send you the resources you need um, 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 to perform. So I'm so indebted that at this point I might love Jamarco Pickett or Najee Marshall when they have no offers, but my guy that got me the job, I owe him to do what he wants me to do. So now you have guys that's not even qualified to evaluate talent because they were with somebody that was connected, get on a staff, and they're getting promoted from school to school with no track record. And all of a sudden they start thinking they know what they're doing. You go from Towson to Ohio State without signing a damn kid, all because of a connection to an AAU program.
Mm.
So, do we have our most qualified coaches in these spots? And that's why I say I really respect what Morgan did, because they saw Kevin Brodus and said, we can't pass on this opportunity. We can win with this guy at the helm. And he knows how to navigate the field and get stuff done. One thing about Brodus not worried about no AAU. You know, when the Rodney Pryor story real quick, I called him the day Rodney got his release when he was at Georgetown and said, I got a kid that'll be your best player. This was on a Tuesday. On that Thursday, he was at Rodney's dorm. He gets it. He wasn't looking up how good is Rodney Pryor, did Streisand Smith or this publications or Jeff Goodman, whoever. He's a good friend of mine, but to say how good he is, he went to the film and went to go see him. There's not a lot of coaches that we have in a position. Not only are they not putting the work in, but they can't because of who they owe their jobs to. So if we're going to discover these guys and recruit these guys that aren't ranked, we have to have the ability and the autonomy to do so. And that's why, hats off to Ahmad Dorsett at NCAT. Never worried about what nobody else thought. He was the first. A lot of people don't know this. He was at Happen at the time. He is the first coach in the country to offer Markel Fultz a scholarship. Before
Mm.
he was on the circuit doing all what he did, he saw a kid that was talented and offered him a scholarship. And a lot of our coaches take these jobs just to say they're coaches without being qualified to even understand the limitations of their position, which is detrimental to the progress.
Yeah, man, that's big. I had no idea about that, man. And like you said, all of that right there, that AAU piece plays such a big role in kids not getting offers. I didn't even think about that, man. I'm very glad that you brought that up because, like, it's almost weird to me, like when I see kids like a Najee Marshall, like how do they leave high school without getting more offers? You know what I'm saying? Like how do you wait until he's super big time to give him an offer, but then now you bring that up? Like, damn, some of these guys can't because they're controlled by guys that have no clue about the game. So they really can't make moves. But guys like a Kevin Brodus and a guy from um,
Yeah,
A&T,
Dorsett. Yeah.
Dorsett, guys like that I really appreciate. Even more so on like a little lower scale, the coach at Central, how many guys he's able to bring in and be successful with. So I just hope that more HBCUs focus on the people they have in position, their coaches, their coaching staffs, their ADs, and then we can make some change from there. But just to say 5-star recruit's gonna come in and change my whole
No,
program make no damn sense, man.
no, it's a pipe dream, man. Because I'm being honest. I'm being critical, and I've gotten criticized on social media for my positions on HBCUs because people are taking this negative. It's not negative. Education is education, and HBCUs are important. It's provided a backbone to our culture, but like there's levels to this basketball thing. Like Nike pays grassroots reps lots of money to find the next LeBron James at 12 years old. That kid is being uh, groomed for certain decisions. These reps have a lot of power. They'll tell a kid might miss a camp, they're not going to a camp. They'll say, you know what, your reputation is done. A lot of pressure on these kids and the people that's grooming them to make these decisions. So we have to make it. We can't give them a reason to say Howard isn't qualified for this talent. Howard has to do everything it needs to do foundationally to be ready for it. whether it's raising the money to upgrade a facility, whether it's whatever the case may be, do the things that kids want for them to come there so that they can say it can't just be about a house party. It can't just be about the girls on campus. It has to be about something a little deeper because these kids are only going to spend 1 year there if that's what they're recruiting. And it has to be something they can tell their friends about. They don't want to be on Snapchat in a bunk bed. Like they want to be able to show that they're living the same experience they would have at a Duke at an HBCU.
That's all facts. 100% facts. Eris, you got any questions?
I'm not sure how this kind of correlates, but like, so what you think of the status of like basketball with the whole NCAA? You know, you've got a lot of top recruits, you know, outside of going to HBCUs, seemingly to go pro. You know, like how that kind of trickles down to HBCUs with more guys going pro. You mentioned like, you know, in a few years, the potential for like high school players going straight out of high school back to the league. Like, how does that trickle down into the talent pool of not just obviously the NCAA, but just specifically like HBCUs and how that, you know, how that looks and going forward?
Well, the good thing about I'll start with this. The good thing about the one and done is that it filters out the kids that don't really want to be in school, which allows for the 4 year guys. So there's a real quality kid right now that Duke University is not recruiting. Like there's a 4 year kid that could play at Duke, but Duke under pressure to win national championships has to get the one and done. So now quality kids are all pushed. It's kind of pushed down because they're all going after the one and done. You take the
Right.
one and done's out the picture. Now you're looking at quality 4 year guys that can transfer up, transfer down based on what they're looking for, and it really can help HBCUs because now the level of talent that they're looking for in a 4 year kid is there for them to choose from. Now, the struggle the HBCUs has and the reverse effect of this is that when you take away the one and dones, then the one and dones become the grad seniors. Now, Hampton University or UMES may have a really good kid that Duke University needs for 1 year. So guess what? They now go to UMES or they go wherever and pluck that kid from there. Now you have another whole issue. So the way the NCAA is structured is it's a hierarchy. It's structured so their highest revenue generating teams don't suffer no matter what rule is made, whether it's imaging rights, whether it's the one and done, whatever it's the TV deals. North Carolina, Duke, Villanova, UCLA, those schools are going to make sure they're platform. So what the HBCUs have to do is capitalize on opportunities. I'll tell you another. I give you a perfect example just to kind of answer your question on how it affects. So as a kid, Taiwan Kinley, that both me and Linjo know, this kid was a 1,000 point scorer in junior college and then going to Morgan. His senior year, he missed 10 games. So because he missed 10 games that were even before the conference started, they wouldn't even allow him a vote on the All MEAC team. He should have been the MEAC Player of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up making the Wizards preseason roster. Now, imagine if if the MEAC can say, you know what, we're going to lift up this kid, celebrate him as our best player, make him our Player of the Year. He goes and plays summer league with the Wizards. He signed with the Wizards. Now, guess what? The MEAC has somebody besides Kyle O'Quinn from 10 years ago in the NBA. That's how we got to think. And now, guess what? Now, some of that talent to say, okay, you know what? Do I want to do 4 years at North Carolina and ride the bench? Or maybe I want to check out and see what's going on at Central. But that's how we got to kind of do things and take advantage of when the thing shifts. So let's say 2023 comes and there's no more one and dones. And now Howard has some quality 4 year guys to pick from that can help build a program. Like, are they going to stay there and try to find sustained success, or are they going to chase 5 stars again? And to me, that's the impact that the NCAA, the way the NCAA moves, has on the HBCUs.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
For sure, man. That right there was definitely big. And just to piggyback off this point about Taiwan, man, like Like those are the things that irk my soul about HBCUs. Like we've had plenty of athletes, Taiwan included, that we could have lifted up and praised and could have garnered attention towards our HBCU cause. But because of foolish rules that we put ourselves into, we don't have the opportunities. Like if you want to be honest, like you said, Taiwan was the second leading scorer in the country behind Trey Young, and he missed 10 games. He scored over 1,000 points in 44 games. Went undrafted, was what, the 16th man, 17th man, almost on the Wizards from an HBCU. Now imagine that story being lifted up. An HBCU star wing, second in the country in scoring, summer league, NBA. Now you have a whole different narrative about what HBCUs can and can't do. And like Rick was saying, that will attract the 4-year guy that Duke doesn't want right now. Because,
Yeah,
facts.
all facts, man, all facts with that. Like we cut ourselves in the face sometimes, man. We cut our noses by the face a lot of times, just because we're trying. And this is kind of point I make. I know you guys are wrapping things up, and I say this to Linjo all the time in one of our group chats. If we want HBCUs to survive and really become what we think they can become, we have to be better than the PWIs. And I don't mean in terms of facilities. I don't mean in terms of just that. I mean in terms of whether it's social issues, delivering the experience to these kids. Because it's not good enough that the money at Kentucky University goes to Kentucky State, and Kentucky State just does what Kentucky does, right? Because blacks own slaves too. Our experience has to be, we're going to say, okay, you know what? We're not just going to make sure that, and here's a good example, that our athletes are taken care of. We're going to make sure their children have a scholarship to the school. We're going to do things that these white universities, the white universities are not invested in our posterity, right? So Howard University and North Carolina Central can say, we're going to invest with the funds that we get from the TV deals into growing the black community and the black culture. But I don't see the interest in that. I see, you know what? I don't want Rupp Arena filled. I want Morgan State's facility filled, and we just want to be the slave owners. And to me, that's not good enough. And like we have to say, we're going to be where the 5 stars come, not just because it's HBCU, but because we're going to make their life better for their children, and we're going to do those things and not just be the black version of Duke or North Carolina.
Yeah, man, and that's
solid.
That's real right there. I like that, and that's a huge point. And like we said earlier, man, I think that'd be a good point to wrap up on. But just want to thank you again for all your insight and just for coming on the show. I think a lot of people will leave this episode with a lot of new knowledge and insight that they can go research and find out for themselves and enlighten themselves when it comes to how to really help HBCUs, especially when it comes to athletics. And I really want to thank you for bringing that perspective to the show.
Anytime, man. Like I said, both of you, man, it's a pleasure to talk to both of you, and keep it moving, man. Keep the game moving. I think you guys are going to do big things. I remember starting out the Red Cup in the basement, and 6 months later we had Grant Hill on and Dennis Scott and getting thousands of views. So, just keep the work, keep it up, keep working, keep getting your guests, and man, you guys be where you want to be real soon.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that, man. Like I said, a lot of knowledge was dropped. Wasn't much for me to say. I let you guys have that convo because it was much needed. And like I said, I think all basketball lovers will definitely gravitate toward this episode. So thank you again, and not just basketball lovers, but just people that want to be educated on, like you said, this process with HBCUs, because it's a very trying time right now, obviously. And so you gave a lot of insight that I think a lot of people will, definitely enjoy. And hell, hopefully they reach out to you. Give them your platforms that you are on, so that way they
man, I'm on Instagram, Twitter is DC Rick _. Ricky Goins on Facebook. I mean, I got a bunch of pages. I don't want to do that to you, but those are my main ones. And I'm available for anybody. I do any interview anybody asks me to do. So I'm available. You know how to get at me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. And with that, we say peace.
Peace.